And hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this discussion on parenting during COVID-19 crisis. So we all know that parenting, this crisis has put us in a very unique situation of parenting, and we are being forced to stay with our children 24/7. And initially it was they go to school, we go to work, we meet in the evening, but now we are with them from morning to night to evening, and sometimes it can be very difficult to parent. And I have a panel of experts from across the globe, and I'm going to start, you introduce yourselves. I'm going to start with Helena. Helena, please introduce yourself and let us know where you work and where you're from.
Thank you very much. My name is Serena Naitoy Amadira. I'm a country representative for Regional Psychosocial Support Initiative. I'm based in Namibia. Thank you.
Thank you. Mercy?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mercy Chege. I'm the Director of Programs at Plan International, and I'm happy to be here today. We did a lot with children, and some of the issues that come up is violence at home and violence at school, and that's why I'm excited to be here talking about positive discipline.
William?
Hi, everyone. My name is William Aoki, and I'm a parent coach with the AICS, that is Africa Institute of Children's Studies. And I'm also an evangelist, and I work with many parents. And during this time, we've seen how stress has come into the home and is challenging the parenting situation. And so that's why I'm here, so that we can be able to discuss this in light of the fathers who are now at home much longer than usual. Thank you.
Sheila.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. I'm Sheila Bowler. I am the Director of Partnerships and Impact at Foster America. We work on keeping families together and ensuring that even in the toughest circumstances that children remain with their families, and in emergencies, developing alternative care situations. So how to best support families to thrive together during this crisis is a cornerstone of my work.
Okay, I will start with Mercy. Mercy, I know you're a teacher. You have worked with children's sector for a very long time. You're a parent of adult children. So I'm going to start with you. What is parenting? Because parenting, I can be taking care of a stone. Is that parenting? So what is parenting?
Thank you, Jenny. Parenting is simply caregiving. So it doesn't matter whether you are parenting your own children, or you're parenting fostered children or adopted children, or you're giving care to children who are in an institution. What constitutes parenting is the whole aspect of caregiving. And sometimes caregiving extends even beyond a home setting, because it extends even to the school. Teachers become caregivers. They may not be necessarily parents, but at some point they become caregivers, because in any situation where children are or when they need caregiving, all aspects of parenting come in. That's why you find sometimes, especially in schools and in lower grades, you find that sometimes parents, teachers become the second parents, and children even get more attached to the caregivers at the school more than their parents. So I would say that parenting is simply caregiving.
Helena, according to you, what is parenting? Helena, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. Parenting is simply giving love, care, protection, and support during this COVID-19 pandemic. We need to be with our family, we need to be with our children, we need to provide them with different activities so that they don't get stressed and they feel the way they're supposed to feel when they were attending school activities. Thank you.
Sheila, what is parenting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I echo all that we've heard already. I agree that parenting is providing the love and supports that children need in order to thrive themselves, and that can be a biological parent, or that can be a caregiver of another kind, someone who has really committed themselves to seeing through providing the best for the child in their care.
William, the gentleman.
Hello.
Yes, William, go ahead.
Yes, could you repeat the question, please?
I'm saying, what is parenting?
Parenting is a loaded question. Indeed, when you think about parenting, as much as it is a word that came into play much later in the centuries, but it is a responsibility that is God-given for those who are in the position to be able to take care of the younger ones. And this is our children, the children around us, and in the society, in such a way that we are able to raise them up to become responsible adults in the society. And that is why even in the African society, we've always had the issue of a child being raised up in the village, and that all that is parenting, where we are able to look after and take care of the needs of the young ones. They could be our children, they could be those in the village, in our society, in the schools. And so it is that God-given responsibility to raise them up, take care of them, protect them, and build them up to become responsible.
Thank you so much. And you can see parenting means different things to different people. And I love the conversation. One saying is caregiving, another is caring of children who are not our own. So as you get, so there's something called responsive caregiving. And I'll start with Sheila. Sheila, what is this? Because there's parenting and there's responsive caregiving. There's a difference. I can be a parent, I have my children, I give birth, but I am not responsive. What is responsive?
Yeah, thanks for that question. There's been a lot of new information people are spreading, sharing. Everyone should be practicing responsive caregiving, but less information about what does that really mean? What is that concept as a whole? And it's really not all that complicated. It's kind of as simple as it sounds in terms of responsive caregiving is really referring to a caregiver's prompt and appropriate interaction with a child. It encompasses both sensitivity and responsiveness. So in terms of sensitivity, it's the awareness from birth of a child's acts and vocalizations and communication. They signal, children signal what they want and need before they can even talk. So that responsiveness is about a parent or a caregiver's capacity to really respond appropriately to those signals, looking closely to what a child is sharing that they need, and then a parent responding back. And what this does is shows a child that they can express themselves, that they can be understood, and that they will be responded to in that way, which means that they feel safe and secure and are far more able to learn and grow and develop in all the ways that we had just talked about parenting was. And parents can be responsive caregivers, as well as teachers and other family members and community members, really just having a good responsiveness to a child's current and growing needs. And certainly in this time of COVID-19, the things that we thought before that children need and where children were at might be changing. And we're seeing that children, as routines are interrupted, as life is changing, children can be confused, children can not fully understand all that's going on around them, and our ability to really be in that with them and understanding where they are at, what they need, and how to respond to them and provide that responsive care is so important in this time to make sure that that children are kept on track for their growing and thriving, as we just heard from William, in terms of growing into a responsible adult ultimately.
He just mentioned William, and my next question will be to William. William, responsive caregiving, and it's probably, people say, when you say about caregiving, it's a woman's thing, it's a mother's thing. But for you, you're a parent coach, and I've just seen Carol has just joined in. What is responsive caregiving when it comes to fatherhood? Like from men's perspective, we were having a discussion earlier, and I told you the way children are shocked to see their parents, their dads, from morning to evening, and there's no football, so they're not watching football. So they're just at home, you know. And what does responsive caregiving look like when it comes to fathers?
Yeah, that is a good question there. You know, when it comes to fathers, many times because of the culture in which we are raised in and we have grown, we realize that most of the time, the caregiving is left for the mother most of the time. You know, we generally, know the mothers as the nurturers in the house, and they're the ones who are able to maybe respond to the needs of the children. But this is not truly so by itself without the fathers, because there is a special place that the fathers play in the lives of the children, that they're able to give care to them. One of the things that is key with the fathers is that it is a God-given responsibility that we are able to provide stability in the house. And when the children don't see that, it becomes difficult to be able to connect in a special way for that. But really, it is a thinking that we need to develop even as we go forward, because this is not something that begins when the child has grown up and is able to talk, because most fathers wait and they say, well, when the child begins to talk, I'll be able to talk with them. But for now, they'll be at the mother's breast and they'll take, the breast milk, and I will not be there. But really, the father should be there even before the child is born, because the child has feelings. If the father begins to talk to the child when the child is in the womb, there's a connection that is being built. When the child is born, there's a connection that the father plays by being involved in the life of the child. So it's not just the mother changing diapers, feeding the child, but the father is involved. Now, when we come to the current situation, you realize that most fathers who would have been out beyond 7 o'clock cannot do so, especially in our country, in Kenya, and many other countries where there are curfews that have been placed. There's containment that is in place. And so they are home earlier. Others are able to work from home, so they have more hours at home. But the challenge is, because of that lack of connection from the beginning, it becomes difficult to be able to listen to the child, to be there to support the child in what they need, to try and figure out how do we talk about this with the child. And that is where we come in, and we can begin to talk with different parents and help them to see how they can begin that conversation with the child, because they are also in an environment that they do not understand. And there's a lot of stress that is developing. So that responsive caregiving cannot just be left to the mother, because it becomes overwhelming. There's a lot of stress already just with the whole issue of COVID-19. But now you add on it the stress of taking care of these children who are supposed to be in school, but they're not in school. And they are here with us. So what do we do? How do we take care of them? Make sure they can do their homework, have their food, they can be cleaned up, and can still do the house chores that I was doing before. And that is where the father comes in and is able to lend a hand and reduce that stress from the mother to the point where now the family can begin to function very well.
Well articulated, William. So, Carol,
Back to you, Jennifer.
I know you've just come in, but thank you so much. Carol, I know you just come in, but you've heard about, we're talking about responsive caregiving at this moment. So, William has spoken responsive caregiving from a father's perspective, and what it means to be responsive. If you can jump in and say, what does responsive caregiving, because I know you're a parent coach also and also a mom, so what does responsive caregiving look like from a mother's perspective?
I mean, I'm really excited to see William and to see that there's a father who is involved in not just parent coaching, but the really, really fundamental aspects of a child's growth, and that is responsive caregiving. It's exciting to see that, you know, fathers are getting on board with this and and overcoming the cultural barriers, so to speak. So good to see you talking about this, William. I mean, from a mother's perspective, it just means being more attuned to a child's needs. And that is from way before they're born, all the way to, I mean, I think the first 1,000 days are the ones that are considered really crucial when it comes to responsive caregiving. But I think it also just goes way beyond that. It's just the ability to be attuned to a child's needs and be in a position to meet them in the moment as they happen, so that you entrench those connections, so that those connections are stronger. So in terms of being practical, for me as a mom, is I have an 11-year-old son. So I feel like I'm doing responsive caregiving by being aware of his emotions and validating them as they happen. So that is at an older age, then being able to just help them to articulate their feelings, and then provide a space where you can hold their feelings, okay, and validate them and not brush them off. And this is important for boys and for girls as well. I think it's easier for girls to express that, but also just teaching children to be okay with expressing big emotions and allowing that space for them to express those emotions. For me, it's very, very key, because it helps them know that you don't have to suppress and take it out somewhere else, but that your feelings are okay, and let's work through them. That's for the older children. For the younger children, I think responsive caregiving really just means meeting their needs as they happen in the moment. The hugging, the physical touch, when they cry, are you attuned to, is this a hungry cry, or is this a tired cry? So there's a lot that goes in there. And Jennifer, let me just say one thing. I think even as we are getting into this responsive caregiving, it's important to focus on the wellness of the parent. Sometimes we get a lot of information about how to care for children in a responsive manner, but we're not taking care of our own well-being. And so it's going to nullify all that information that we are getting about responsive caregiving, which is amazing and exciting, but also parents being aware of their own, where they are at in the moment. If they're not able to provide that responsive caregiving in the moment, what are they doing to take care of themselves so that they're in a position, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. So how are they taking care of themselves so that in turn, then they can pour that to the children?
That is so true. And we have Helena. Helena is a psychologist. And Helena, I think I should start with Mercy, because Mercy is going to talk about discipline. You know, take there from somewhere else. So Mercy, we've talked about responsive caregiving, and responsive caregiving means also giving discipline. Okay, and discipline. So you have to help us understand the difference between discipline, punishment, and taking responsibility of their actions. So as we talk about responsive caregiving, and how can we help parents say, I'm trying to be responsible, but these children are so difficult. I cannot understand how this child, I told them to sit down like 5 times, they're not sitting down. I have a meeting, I have a Zoom call. Should I start beating them up? You know, you understand, you know, I have my own one. I'm trying to push from here right now. So how do we discipline positively without harming our children, Mercy?
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. It's never an easy discussion talking about positive discipline, because every time we start talking about positive discipline, there are those who will there are those who want to know. So if a child does this, what do I do? You know, you give me something that I can touch with, like a blueprint of positive discipline. Unfortunately, positive discipline has nothing to do when a child does this, you do this. It is so much more about the parents. And I think that's where the difficulty comes in when you're discussing positive discipline, because it is not about the child. Positive discipline is all about parents understanding. And I think it is very difficult for parents to understand. So some of the general principles that we can talk about, parenting, positive discipline, and it goes with the responsive parenting. And I really like what Carol was saying, that is being attuned with the feelings, with the emotions of children and meeting them as they come. So one of the things that I want to talk about is one general principle is that please deal with the root causes, do not deal with the symptoms. Because some of the things that we see, they're acting out what we consider indiscipline. There must be a root cause. For example, in this time of COVID, we have never been locked down with our children for 3 days, let alone 3 months for some of us. And, like now, this is my 5th week with my children in the house. And mine are, they're young adults. My last one is actually 19 years. So you can imagine we are here, they're supposed to be in school. One of them was supposed to be working, now they're at home. People who have their own life. And then you're telling them, 24/7, we are in this house, we are not going out. What are we supposed to be doing together? So now, if anything happens, like somebody does not want to wash the dishes and it is their turn, I cannot just come and start screaming all over. Reason being, they are frustrated that they are not in school. They are frustrated that they cannot be at work. So if I start shouting because of the dishes, most of the time you realize it's not about the dishes. If a preschool child right now comes and they want to hang around your skirt all day and they don't know how to, they don't know how to move on from you, it is because of the uncertainty and insecurity about all the news about COVID-19, all the news about how many people have died, are my parents going to die? They will wake up at night because they have nightmares. And don't tell them it's because you ate too much or you never drank your milk, those kind of things that we like saying. It's because of the uncertainty. It's because of the anticipated grief. When, when the minister comes and says, this thing is everywhere, we don't know where it is, so please stay at home. And then you start walking out of your gate because you want to go and buy milk. And they're like, my mom will go out there, my dad will go out there, they will get sick and they will not come back. So what are we dealing with when they start throwing tantrums? Is it about the tantrums or is it about the situation that they are in that needs reassurance? So positive discipline is never about the child. It is about the parent and their capacity to understand what the children are going through. So if a 12-year-old right now starts acting out, you cannot assume it is because they are indisciplined. You cannot assume it's because teenagers are supposed to be rebellious. That is what you have heard, that's what you have read in books. But this is a time when they need to be with their friends and they cannot be with their friends. This is a time when they need to be out spending their energy with, laughing, playing, jumping, or maybe just lazing around. And then you start saying, you're rebellious, you're not listening to me, you're always on your phone. That's something that parents need to understand. The fear of being alone, the fear of, being unusual because you're more strict than the others. When you say that your children are indisciplined, then please look at the situations that they are facing and be able to reassure them. So this is where now, as a parent, don't engage in the power struggles. That somebody has refused to make their bed at 1 a.m. and that's when they're 1 p.m. and that's when they're supposed to make it according to your rules, and they want to make their bed when they are going to bed to sleep. And for them are like, why do I make a bed and I can go back to sleep anytime because there's nothing I am doing. So understanding at the particular development stage, what is understandable for a teenager and what is understandable for a 2-year-old, what is understandable for a young adult who have just dropped out of their job, like my son, because we agreed that you cannot be going to work again. Please, let's wait for this season to end. And because it was a temporary one, you will get another one. It is not about indiscipline. And that's what parents need to understand. The other principle is that please be proactive. If you're talking about discipline, just be proactive. It's not when the schools closed and parents were now forced to be home with their children, they shouldn't have waited for 3 weeks to say, you know, I like beds being made at 8. You should have been proactive enough to know that you're here for a long haul. So sit your children down and talk about, when do I like the beds made? Is it cast on stone? Can we negotiate? And the reason being, you can't tell them because we have to maintain a normal routine. You all wake up at 6 o'clock like you're going to school and make your beds. Imagine it won't work. And you will be fighting from morning to evening because they want to watch TV until midnight and wake up at midday so that their days are shorter. Why? We're in a COVID-19 lockdown. So there are so many things that parents need to know have to be abnormal. So sit down and agree, yes, we have to make beds. So now that we are in lockdown, what time do we make our beds? Is it at 6 a.m.? Is it at 8 a.m.? Or can we say by noon, all beds should be made? And you will see you will not fight with your children. What time do we want the dishes washed? So we shall have our breakfast, and then after that, we shall watch a movie for 1 hour, and then we come back and wash dishes just in time for us to make lunch. Is that agreeable? So if you have actually talked about this, and you have agreed on the ground rules, and they are not followed, that is the time now to impose positive measures that do not include punishment. There's a very clear distinction between punishment and discipline. And one of the things is what I've just talked about. Please reduce the number of don'ts. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Children get confused when we have don'ts from morning to evening. What are the do's? Don't do this, please do this. And it should be followed by because. And one of the becauses in the COVID season, we are in this together. We are all afraid. We don't know when it is going to end. So let's just learn to live with each other. And it's good to admit we don't spend 12 hours with our children normally when the schools are on, when there's no lockdown. So this is very unusual. So parents need to be vulnerable to their children. This is unusual. I have not had it in my life. Just like you have never had it, let's discuss how we can stay with each other without making too many, quarrels, without annoying each other so much. And that's the other thing. Parents need to know, in positive discipline, we normally say nobody makes you angry. You actually choose to be angry yourself. So if the beds are not made at 8, you choose to be angry. You choose not to talk about it. You choose to quarrel somebody because of that. What if you chose something different? Like, okay, we agree the beds are to be made by 8, they are not made. Please give me a reason and a different time when you will make your bed. There goes a very good solution. You have not punished anyone, you have not hurt anyone, you have not quarreled with anyone, you have just worked a new timeline. And you will realize, I didn't see why I should make my bed because after all, I was planning to go back to bed at 10, there's nothing I am doing. The other thing is that parents are so crazy about homeschooling right now. And I can assure you, I don't think there are enough children who can be in a class right now with all the uncertainty. Please, parents need to be soft. They need to be kind. They need to be understanding that when the settings change for schooling, the children's life gets disrupted. And it is up to us as protectors, as caregivers, and as parents, and even as teachers who are engaging in online learning, to understand that the situation is very normal for the children, and they may not be able to, to be in the mood for learning the way we want it, and even for the exams and all the things that we want them to do. You cannot sit a child for 1 hour or 2 hours in a class, 30 minutes, and they're wondering, what am I doing in front of a computer? Can I go and play a bit and then I come back? All those things need to be put in consideration. So you realize that what we might consider in discipline in this time of COVID, it's really not in discipline. It's just children reacting to unusual circumstances, children anticipating that they will be sick, or their parents will be sick, or their teachers will be sick, or their friends will be sick. Or this minister who is always telling us how many more people have the virus and how many people have died. And and all this, you can see the social media is live with a lot of fake news, a lot of real news, and a lot of things that make kids anxious. So In this situation of COVID, I am almost confident when I am saying that 90% of indiscipline is not really indiscipline. It's just children crying out for help because they don't know what to do with themselves. And one of the other basic principles of positive discipline, always have as a parent or as a caregiver at the back of your mind that every behavior is purpose driven. There is a reason why a child behaves the way they do. The minute you understand why your child is behaving the way they are behaving, you will be able to behave differently. And also look out for manipulation. When children get emotionally exhausted and confused, they become manipulative. And you don't need to beat them up or to punish them for that. You only need to be understanding, and you tell them, I understand, but we have to do 1, 2, 3 things. So don't go with every misbehavior. But this is not the time to start classifying even the small things that children are doing differently as indiscipline. Maybe there's just acting out feelings that they cannot be able to talk about. Jenny, I could talk about positive discipline all day, so let me give other people an opportunity to say something about it.
So, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, gosh, the amount of conflict in that we are going through. For me, whenever I have conflict of any sort, stress level starts coming out. And Helena, we are going to talk about psychosocial issues because of parenting, and some of these things that, like what Mercy is talking about, the way you act with your children is as a result of stress. It's as a result of you're thinking, where am I going to get the next meal? Oh my goodness, I have like 5 Zoom calls and Jennifer has just called me for another webinar. You have all these stresses. So how can we deal with stress as parents, Helena? And please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to hear so many input about parenting and the different ways and issues that are surrounding the way how parents deal with children during this time of COVID. Mercy have talked about so many positive discipline, so many positive ways of dealing with children and other issues also that can lead to stress. Stress is a situation that really brings an uncertainty to people and unable to cope or being able to share their feelings with others. I would focus on toxic stress. So what do we mean by toxic stress? This is a result of a prolonged activation, stress response, when when the body fails to recover free from a stressful situation. Like COVID-19 is really a stressful situation because you are confined to your house. Children are normally they used to go out and play around. They used to go to the shops with their parents. Now they are just at home. So that can really lead them to a stressful situation, and it can be toxic because the body will not be able to function because the body is just confined to one environment and it's not used. The children's body, even as parents, we are not used to be in the house for so many time. I mean, for a very long period of time like that. We normally go out to do different activities, visit friends, do shopping, go out outing, and this now in the time of COVID is not helping or it's not happening. So toxic stress, it differs from a normal stress response in that there is a lack of parent or caregiver support or reassurance or emotional attachment. So the insufficient parent caregiver support prevents protection of stress response. So as caregivers or as parents, if we are unable to understand ourselves, as Mercy was saying, that we should first understand ourselves for us to be able to help others. So if we are unable to provide a sufficient support to children, then children will live with this toxic stress. So what are some examples of the toxic stress? This include abuse, neglect, food scarcity, extreme poverty, violence, and household dysfunction. So if a household is not functional during this time of COVID, definitely stress level will be very high because people are not coping with each other, and there's no way they can go, so they have to live together. So we need to prevent this toxic stress so that we are able to live together in this time of COVID. Again, I would like to also focus on what William was saying, that fathers plays a very strong role in bringing up children. So if one support for a parent is not there, so a child will be feeling stress. And then the child will start asking, why is it only that my mother is always the one who is helping me? Why is it only father who is always helping me? So we as parents both need to play our role. We need to be able to support our children during this time of stress. So with this, we need to also understand how does toxic stress occur. So it occurs when a child experiences infrequent or prolonged adversity, such as physical or emotional abuse. So we need to prevent, or we need to make sure that we don't expose our children to emotional or physical abuse. As Messi was saying, when a child is not doing what you want them to do, try to talk them in a manner that will not anger them, so that you are able to prevent the stress to affect your child. So let's reduce the don't, but rather than we say, do this because it's good, because it's helping us to live together, because it's helping the house to be clean and to look good, and you live in a clean house, and when you're in a clean environment, your health will not be affected. So we need those positive reinforcement, those positive attitude for the children not to get stress. So we also need to ensure that children emotion, they can quickly change within a second. So the moment you say something that is not good to them, or they will even compare you to say, if it was my teacher would not say like that. My teacher would say this. So we need to avoid issues like that for children, not to compare us as parents or as caregiver to the teachers, and then they will think it's better to be at school rather than to be at home. Because now in this time, so they cannot be at school, so we have to be with them at home, and we have to make the home a conducive environment for them to stay. And we also need to understand that as parents or as caregivers, we need to talk to our children in a mature or in a friendly manner, so that they don't get stressed, so that they are able also to reach out to others. Remember, now most of the communication is being done online, and they have cell phones, so they can communicate to their peers or to other family members to say, no, in our house this is what is happening. If it is a very bad experience, then they will be, you might not see them, they might lock themselves in the room, and then they will be crying, and that can really lead to a stressful situation for them, because now they will be alone there. So when they come out, because they don't want you to see that you have caused a pain to them, so they will make sure that they hide it from you, so that you don't see what they have gone through. So as parents, we really need to be able to prevent stressful situations during this time of COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Helena. So I'll go back to Sheila. Sheila, you have had a both conversation about stress, and probably someone is thinking, what can affect a child? It's my stress. I'm the one. It's me who is being affected. They're not the ones. They're the ones who are pushing me to buy for them food. They're the ones who are pushing me to buy for them clothes. So how does stress affect children and child well-being?
Yeah, That's a great question. Well, I would say first and foremost, particularly when children are young, they don't have, the full capacity to make logical, rational reasoning. The connections just are not quite there yet. And so because of that, the primary caregiver is really the one that functions as that, like the part of their brain that makes the decisions, that makes rational thinking happen. And so we actually, as young children, actually have um, a response that is mirroring our primary caregiver's responses. And so when our primary caregiver is very stressed, is under quite a bit of pressure, has some maybe less than positive discipline tactics that they're using, kids are actually feeling that and taking that on themselves on a brain level. And then from a kind of more emotional and well-being level, our kids are completely attached to us, and uh, really depend on us as the parents to create safe, secure environments in which their needs are met, in which they feel cared for, and that is so essential for any learning, for emotional regulation, and things of that nature. And I think a number of participants have talked about all the ways in which stress can result in poor discipline behavior, because we're so overwhelmed with all of the things that are going on. And so finding the ways to take a deep breath, to take the breaks that we deserve. I think, Carol, as you mentioned, that we have to take care of ourselves first in order to be able to provide care for our young children. So, I work largely in very, the most vulnerable children in the US at this time, although my background is purely in East Africa, but children here in the US who are the most vulnerable to abuse and neglect. And at this time, as families are being kind of cooped in together and the stress levels increase, positive discipline is decreasing, and we're seeing potential, certainly rates of child abuse and neglect go up. And so as parental stress levels go up, the potential for abuse and neglect go up. And yet the things that we know that are most important for families to reduce stress are like social support, your community, your family, those that are able to, talk you through a hard time, bounce ideas off of, or just go out and have an experience in which, as Helena said, bring your toxic stress levels down. And when you're able to bring your toxic stress levels down and have a calmer reaction, you're able to kind of stabilize your emotions as well as your kids. And so we are seeing quite a few challenges in terms of abuse and neglect going up along with those stresses, and with a reduction of social support wrapping around families, we're not able to see folks helping those kids through any abuse or neglect that they're facing, reporting it out. It really is becoming even more of a silent, invisible challenge and issue that kids are facing. Here in the US, we have hotlines in which mostly teachers and other folks that have to report abuse and neglect are the ones that do so. So police force, those in schools, things of that nature. And we're seeing that the rates of abuse reporting are down by 40 to 60% across the country. And we know that there's similar things across the globe as well. And we know that that doesn't mean that abuse and neglect are necessarily on the decline, but how do we really get families, how do we get parents the supports that they need so there is less stress in the household? So ensuring that there's enough food, ensuring that there's income to make ends meet in this time, and ensuring that there's still social connections, both for the kids and for the parents and families in order to release some of that stress, to continue to have that network of support. So that's a little bit of what I will share, but the biggest kind of takeaway is that the stress we experience as parents is the same stress that our children experience. And there's really no way to be in a household and with a parent at a very high stress level and a child who just doesn't have that experience. So figuring out best ways to monitor or to reduce stress levels in the household and be kind of more of a communal support network for one another.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sheila. So, William, I want you to bring the man's perspective. There's this notion, I think it's a global notion about fathers and fathers being the providers. And right now, with people losing their jobs, there's a lot of salary cuts, and households are losing income like every day. So how can fathers be able to strengthen themselves and control their stress, so that we don't see that stress being them releasing that stress in a bad way, in a negative way that is harming one children and their parents and even their own wives. So children, in one way, they are so stressed that they violate their children, and two, when they are so stressed, they are violating their parents, and children are actually experiencing that. They're seeing what is going on. Earlier on, Mercy and I were in a chat about sexual and gender-based violence, and this is something that is coming up, and because fathers and men in their house are stressed, they do not know what to do. So how can parents, like a father, can be able to control their stress? How can they reduce their stress levels so that they can be able to be good fathers and be able to respond properly?
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. That is a very crucial point at this time that we are facing job cuts, and those men who've been going out there and running their businesses, many have closed, others are not seeing as many customers as they would. And so this is what is causing the stress, because the man looks at himself, looks at what he needs to cover and how much he needs, what he's able to do, and realizes there is a big gap between his capacity as the provider, primary provider in the house, and what he's supposed to provide. And so this is a challenging situation that we find ourselves. What I would encourage the fathers to do, the first thing you have to do is to be able to acknowledge that the situation is there, it is real, and that it is causing a certain amount of stress, so that we don't look at it negatively. Because once you look at it negatively, then you'll find yourself taking it out on your family, on your wife, on your children, and wherever you are, because you are not looking at how we can be able to face it, but we look at it as a bad thing. But it is a reality that we are all facing. The second thing, after being able to acknowledge that, is to communicate, to be able to communicate to yourself as a person, so that you're able to understand that this situation is here with us. It is a challenging situation, and I am not able to provide as much as I was able to. And then be able to look at it and say, so with this situation, how much can I be able to cover, and how much am I not able to cover? By so doing, one can easily begin to remove some of those things that are not necessary at this point in time. Things that, would maybe increase my social status. I might want to spend more money on something that I don't need to spend money on right now. So beginning to cut down. Once I communicate to myself, it becomes easier to be able to communicate to my family, of course, beginning with my spouse, and being able to share with my spouse the reality on the ground, because my spouse or my children, especially if they are grown up, they are more in their teenage, they will see what is happening and they can understand these things. So being able to communicate with myself gives me the strength to now be able to communicate to them about the situation so that we can be able to be on the same page. The third level of that is to be able to now connect to the social network that we have, to the family relations. If we are, in a church setting, maybe to those that we commune with, because then we can be able to begin to find ways to fill the gaps that are there instead of us going out and taking it out on our families and on our children. So this is something that we have to be able to look at and see that this stress, as has been mentioned earlier, is the very same stress that the family is also going through. But as a man, I have to be able to be vulnerable. And that was mentioned earlier. I think it was Matthew was talking about it. We have to be honest about the situation. When we are not honest, then we pile up the stress, and that is when it blows up later. So we don't want to pile it up. We want to be able to face it and to be able to talk about it honestly. Now, one of the things that we're able to do as a family, I have two teenagers, a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old, and together with my wife, and we're able to sit down and discuss the situation and say, hey, this is where we see ourselves now. What do you guys think? What are you going through? What are you feeling? What do you think you're going to miss? And what are you missing already? And what do you anticipate? So everyone is able to process it by talking through it. And I was able to also be able to share, some of the things that I am not able to do right now that were able to help us, in different situations. By so doing, then we are all on the same page. Of course, the younger children will not be able to understand, and we have to be able to take in that part for them and be able to empathize with them and begin to feel what they feel, but not take our own stress that we feel that is there and it is real and put it on them. But we are able to take it and be able to spread it to the right place, to those who can be able to help us carry that weight as we go through it. So being able to accept the situation, communicate to ourselves, communicate to our spouses, and then communicate to those that we have connections with, so that we are in all this together as a family, as a setting in the society. Then we are able to stand a better chance of being able to going through it. We can also be able to learn from other parents when we're able to share what we are going through and figure out, so what is working for you with this stress and this challenge that you have? How is it going? Then we're able to learn from them and be able to begin to implement so that we too can be able to be on the right path of just being able to hold it together as we move forward.
Thank you, William. Carol, are you still with Carol? Is she there? Or she left? Oh, she's there. Carol, so I also want you to like, how do we deal with stress? Mothers are the ones who get the children cry to, Mommy, I'm hungry. The favorite one nowadays in my house is, Mommy, I'm bored. And you're thinking, you're bored. You give them books? No, Mommy, I've read that book. Because they have watched cartoons, they have finished all the programs, they have read all the books, and they are bored. They want to go out. And you're being told, if you go out, you're going to be arrested. So how do you deal with that stress as a mother? And also thinking that you need to care for your children. How do you deal with that stress?
Very good question, Jennifer. I think that for me, the most important thing is your own self-care. So make sure that out of a full day, you give yourself minimum 20 minutes of just being by yourself. That you have to communicate clearly to the rest of the family, because if you don't do that and you don't take those 20 minutes to recharge, and 20 minutes for me is minimum. So if you want to take 3 20-minute moments, you can do that. But it's important that we actually just get me time alone. And I know as women, we just feel guilty about stealing a few moments to ourselves. So we need to learn to really just take care of yourself. Take those 20 minutes, and during those 20 minutes, please do absolutely nothing, like zero, like do something for yourself. If you have to do something, let it be for yourself. For me, what I do journal a lot. I take a walk. So to be able to let off steam, at least have that time to yourself. Make sure you prioritize it. You even schedule it, in the course of the day. So that's one. Number two, I think as part of that is self-care. I think one of the ways to really handle stress is to increase our levels of self-awareness. And by increasing our levels of self-awareness is by asking quality questions like, in this moment, what is going on with me? So the child comes and tells you, I'm bored, sort me out. And my first thought is, I'm not supposed to entertain you. So I go into a whole tirade of words for 3 minutes. And by the time I'm done, the child is looking at me like, what just happened, But, in that moment when the child is talking to you like that, what is going on with me? Am I bringing my own stresses into this situation? What are my thoughts? So one of the things I really help parents to walk through is to really interact with themselves more and find out what their triggers are. Because a child can come and tell you, I'm bored, and you will handle it with a lot of maturity and wisdom. But a child can come and tell you, I'm bored, and you go to the other extreme, a whole tirade of yelling and your own, adult tantrum. So having, learning to know what our triggers are is part of self-care, and it's part of self-awareness. What is triggering me right now? Am I worried about my job? Am I worried about not having food by the end of this month? So during that time that you're spending time by yourself, like those 20 minutes, those are some of the things you can do. You can journal out your worries. You can journal out your anxieties. You can learn to take care of yourself during that moment so that when you're with your child, you are showing up fully. Another source of stress for parents, for me, is the guilt they feel after they feel like they have messed up with their children. You have yelled, you have chappered them. I don't know if chapa is a word I can use here because it's a Swahili for spanking. I know this is more of a global audience. So yeah, and I mean, you have just landed on them and spanked them, and you're feeling guilty, or you have yelled at them, or you said words that you shouldn't have said. So that becomes such a source of stress because you're feeling guilty, and you're like, and if you have some bit of information at the back of your mind, you're thinking, maybe I've ruined my child, and I did this last week again, and I'm so hopeless. So again, those are some of the self-awareness spaces that we need to increase, because when you're feeling guilty about something and you haven't dealt with it, you haven't processed it, you haven't repaired, then you're carrying it. The same child will come and do something and they trigger you, and again you go back into that whole other space of yelling or whatever it is that you do. So being aware about the actual emotions that we are feeling, for me, is part of managing stress, because it helps you understand yourself better. And in a situation like that, when you feel you have messed up, give yourself an opportunity to repair it. You see, we haven't been socialized as parents, as those ones in authority, as those ones who are taking care of these little ones. We haven't been socialized to go back and apologize. I mean, even our leaders don't even do that. They're like, okay, fine, you guys just make all the noise you want, but I'm moving on. But a true mark of leadership really is being able to go back to repair a situation that you have messed up. And I'm talking about this all in the context of stress, because if you don't do that, then it will still be something something that's already still unresolved in you, and it will still trigger you, and you will still land on the child when they do something. So our ability to repair is also a source, a way we can reduce the levels of stress, because we are clearing as we go. We're dealing with this moment. So if you feel you have messed up, even as you're interacting with your children, and all of us here have talked about the levels of anxiety that are there, that are likely to cause us to be irritable, to be explosive with our children. Our children are explosive with each other. There's a lot of high levels of sibling rivalry going on. So again, you can handle it by just going back I'm going back to my 20 minutes because those 20 minutes for me are very crucial. Figure it out, journal if you need to, and then go back to the child and say, hey, I know you did this, and this is how I responded. I shouldn't have responded this way, and I am sorry. Do you know what you do that when you tell a child that? You are teaching them also what to do to others, because that's a relationship skill that can only be taught by modeling. So taking care of yourself, having higher levels of self-awareness, learning to repair when you need to. Those are just a few of the spaces that we can engage in when we're thinking about reducing our levels of stress. Asking for help is another one. I must say that, again, as women, we want to hold everything, and we want to it's just a feeling of, it gives us such a sense of identity when you can come in and rescue. And so you want to show up in there as superwoman. In fact, I have had mothers call themselves supermom. And I find that a very, very stressful. I mean, how you call yourself supermom? Someone who has superpowers have superpowers. They don't have normal powers. And so the moment you call yourself that, then it means you're setting yourself up for failure, because there's no way you can measure up to that. So asking for help is something that also we need to learn to do as women, and requesting for it, and being sure that being very clear about how you are requesting for that help, so that you're not bringing your baggage into that and just say, could you kindly do 1, 2, 3 for me? And that's it, without putting so many other words around it. And so let us also learn to ask for help. And when we ask for help, let us also learn to receive help. Because it's another thing to be able to let other people do the things that you're used to doing, that give you a sense of, healthy self-esteem. So ask for help, and when the help is given, please receive it and allow people to do what you've asked them their way, okay? So that you let go of that space. You're not like, okay, you didn't do it right, because it's going to be hard for them to say yes the next time you ask them for help. So for me, those are some of the tips we can use during this season, just to help us manage stress.
Mercy, and then Sheila, probably you come in. Mercy, we are talking about stress of our own children, but there are those among us who are living with children who are not their children. They have either their guardians, or curfew happened and the children happen to be in Nairobi or a lockdown somewhere on earth where there's a lockdown, and you're forced to stay with these children. They're not your children. You already have your stresses. So how do we take care of children who are not ours? We are fostering or we are guardians. How do we take care of these children? And making them feel loved and belonging, regardless of where they are from. Because sometimes because of this, there's that lack of belongingness for children. How do you make them belong? Like I know in Kenya there's a lot of decongestion, and there's a lot of happening to remove children from their homes. And I think in the States it's the same thing. There's a lot of foster care that's going on. So how do we make these children feel belong and feel secure? They don't feel like we have lost everything. Now Corona is here and our life is over, kind of feeling. So how do we go around that?
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Indeed, it's very difficult to parent a child who is not related by blood, because there's always this feeling of, am I doing the right thing? If I discipline them, will they think it's because they're not my biological children? Will they think that they are less loved than the others? So there's always that part of feeling like you need to be cautious, like you're stepping on eggshells every time you have to deal with a fostered child or even an adopted child. But I think it is very important for the person who is fostering to be sure of themselves and their intentions. Because if they are going to stay with you for longer, then really there's some things that they just have to adapt to, as much as you and your family has a lot to adapt to. So that open communication at the very onset is very important. Why are you in our family at such a time? Is it because you are locked out? I know families that, kids who could not travel because of the lockdown, and some areas in Kenya are inaccessible, people cannot travel there. So if somebody lands in my house like now, the first thing that we do is let's just sit down and agree, why are we here? We are here because there is a situation called COVID-19, is a lockdown and you could not get home. So you're welcome in this family, and please, this is how we live, and I do not want to treat you any differently from anyone else in this family. So if we have duties, we will include you in our duties. If we don't have duties, then you also don't have to work just because we are fostering you or we are hosting you for this time. So in other words, what I'm saying is that open communication, that as long as we are here, do not look at yourself as an outsider, because really you're part of this family and you can stay here for as long as it takes you to be here. You will be welcome in this family as a member of the family. The other thing is that if it is possible for them to be in touch, and if it is a situation that is not legal, so they can be in touch with their loved ones elsewhere, then just allowing them, is it a phone call every day, twice a day, it doesn't matter, you can get in touch. Even if they don't have a phone, I have a phone, please call your mom, call your dad, call your sister, call somebody, call your friend if you want to talk to them, and you tell them that you're okay, and they also tell you that they are okay. In situation where you know that there's some bad news, like they're with you because probably a member of the family is unwell, a member of the family cannot come back home. Before you let them get the news from someone who is so far away from them and who cannot give them a hug if they need one, make sure you break the news to them in such a way that they're able to understand. And then after that, you tell them, we assure you of our support. So I think it is reassurance, constant communication, and a bit of understanding what their needs are and being able to meet them at that time. If they need to talk to a friend, they have a phone, they don't have airtime, please provide that and don't feel like they're abandoned, and don't act like they are abandoned. So they will need more reassurance than your children or your family members who are living with you. And you must be able to provide that. And sometimes when you feel overwhelmed and worried for them, sit them down and also talk about it. The capacity, again, the age appropriateness of the information you're giving is very important, because at an older age, they're able to understand. At a younger age, then they need more explanation and more empathy. So it's just a matter of making sure that the communication channels are open and they have enough information, age-appropriate information about your situation and their situation. But more than that, treating them as a member of the family. If somebody came to visit you and you did not give them any work because you think it is wrong and they feel like they're being exploited, and all around that person, people are working around the house, they'll feel like they are isolated, like they're not accepted. Again, if they are working and the others are not, they will feel exploited. So it's just a matter of making them feel part of the family and part of the system, and treating them equally and letting them know we are in this together and they are welcome to stay with you. I think that is very important.
Thank you, Mercy. Sheila, I know this is where you work a lot. Children in alternative care. So, like, how is it going? How do you make children comfortable? Like, I know in North America you do a lot of this. So, how do you make children, like in foster care, in guardianship settings, how do you make them feel more comfortable when they're staying with in homes that are not, quote unquote, with their parents?
Yeah, that's such an important question. I'll start off by kind of taking us back to where we started around responsive caregiving. And as we heard many of us say, that responsive caregiving starts in the womb and continues through birth and onward. And you really have just such a profound opportunity to learn about that child at multiple developmental stages. And when you have a child in your care that is not your own, whether that be informal or formal foster care or in an orphanage or what we call congregate care here in the US, the first stop is to practice the utmost responsive caregiving, really getting to know them where they are, You know, children might come into your care and they might be 12 years old, but at the not at the developmental stage that a 12-year-old might be at. So really understanding, where is this child emotionally, physically, mentally, understand their needs and respond to those needs. Many of these kids, and you know, certainly those in foster care and informal alternative care placements and orphanages and congregate care, have lived a life where their needs are not met. And so if you can be that person that is really providing responsive care and meeting the needs where they are, and I don't just mean, you know, food and shelter, but, you know, emotional support and social support, you know, things of that nature that will help them feel safe and secure and settle into where they are. I think we see a lot of kids who enter new homes kind of feeling rebellious and feeling you know, disconnected, and that can result in a lot of challenges if we really don't create a warm, positive environment for these kids that need it more than most. And so certainly creating an environment where they can share their emotions, being really real about what they're going through and allowing them to talk through what they're facing and experiencing, and that it's okay that they might not want to be with you. They might want to be with their family. They might be grieving their family. They might be really uncomfortable with where they are, and kind of being open to that and being willing to talk through all of those feelings and emotions with them will allow them to open up a little bit. I would certainly recommend, you know, finding time, you know, nugget of time, as Carol, you said, self-care time, and that's really important, but also one-on-one time, particularly with those kids that might be new to your household, and allowing for relationship building around their needs. If they're really young, it might just be singing and dancing in the home or cooking together, you know, some very basic things. If they're a little bit older, it might be talking about their friends or sports or whatever interests them. And then certainly creating a structure and routine that is important for all kids at any time, but particularly those that have had their kind of situations uprooted. And so they, you know, that allows kids to feel safe and secure and know what's coming next. You know, no more surprises for me. I know what's going to happen. I would absolutely echo what Mercy said. First and foremost, for these kids, ensuring that they're connected to their past community, whether that be their biological parents, whether that be people that they've lived with in the past, whether that be people from their community, really ensuring that they don't lose who they are, you know, I think are able to know who they are and where they came from, and continue to be connected to that. And us, you know, us that are providing care for those that are not our own biological children, need to be okay and comfortable with sharing that, you know, sharing the relationship with others from their past. Doesn't mean any less of ours, just means that they need to have that consistency in relationships. And then keeping the community for the parents and caregivers, as we've all talked about. You know, it's a stressful situation, particularly, you know, here in the US, we have about almost 500,000 of kids in foster care. And so some of those kids are new to their homes now, and some of them have been there for a while. Some of them have, you know, really high special needs and are used to these foster parents are used to having the supports from special services that help, you know, children with education and their special needs, and they don't have those anymore. So again, just like being patient with yourself and adjusting to your new world and what is coming up as kind of the most important things that your child might need, and that it could take a little bit of time to figure out. I love what you said, Carol, of that you're probably going to mess up sometimes, and that's okay. And you know, being honest about that and apologizing and working through that with the kids is so important. I particularly worry about congregate care, which is what we call it here, but orphanages where we've got, dozens, hundreds of kids in facilities. I both worry about, COVID-19 infection spreading. We're seeing in institutions, it spreads pretty quickly, but also about how isolating that experience is for kids within these facilities. And how do we make sure that they can still be connected to families or communities outside, that they are not, that they are safe and secure and being well cared for in these facilities is something I think us as professionals are responsible for doing and thinking about. And so, that's my call to any professionals on this that work within this space. We need to stay in touch with the kids that we know that are at risk of abuse or neglect, that are in families that are not their own and might be struggling, that are in orphanages or congregate care facilities, to really just check in, even by phone, to see how they're doing. So there's a much more I could say, but that's where I'll stop for now.
Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions from YouTube. The first one I think I posted, and I think I'll start with William. Is William with us? William? Hey, William. Oh,
Yes.
So, William, you have adult children, and also you can, from your perspective, let me just read the question how it is. How can parents communicate their stressors but still remain a source of assurance to their children? Like, you are stressed. We do not know what's going to happen. Yesterday I was told you should be ready to stay in the house until September. I'm thinking, my goodness, how do we stay until September? How do we survive until September? How do you? And my children have already started counting down their opening May. You cannot tell them they're not going to open school in May. How do you control that stress yourself? But at the same time, you communicate, but you're saying, I'm not stressed, but inside your brain is racking. How do you do that? And then I don't know if Helena is with us. Helena, after you, Helena can come in and tell us how do you become a source of assurance and also control your own.
Yes, that is a very good question, because as we are facing these stressful situations, we want to be able to communicate with the children. And one of the things that we have to do, first of all, is we have to be aware that we are stressed. I think that is something that most parents are not aware of. And, sometimes you're just going about your business and you're doing this, you're taking care of the children, you want to provide, you're running out, you snap at them, but you're not aware of what is causing it. So just being aware that, yes, I'm stressed because this is what I'm supposed to provide and take care of these children and my family. I am not able to do it. Okay, this is where I am. I think that helps us now to begin to be able to now take it to the children in a great way. So I have to be aware of that. When I'm aware of that, then I can know that maybe I am ready to communicate the same or not. Because sometimes, something happens and I want to be able to communicate, but I might just snap at the children or at my spouse, and that is not going to build that situation. So what I need is to take time out and to be able to pause, because that is not the right moment to be able to do it. Take time, evaluate myself, and be able to maybe tap into where I can get my strength. And I know we've talked about this, the issue of self-care is so important, because that is where I can be able to recharge and re-energize and be able to now be ready to go and communicate what it is. So it is important to be aware. Once I am aware and I am ready, I can be able to be vulnerable with them appropriately, because depending on the age of the children, I might not need to share everything. Let's say we don't even have money for the food for the next day or the next moment, so I cannot just throw that out to the children and that is where we are. So we are all giving up. I have to keep the positive side and be able to know that, yes, this is where we are, but we are going to get out of it, because I know, I have been in other situations before. It was not COVID, but it was stressful, and I got out of it. I am here now. And to have that basis and to be able to go back to what you overcame before as a source of strength of where we are today, then we can be able to communicate that. The other way we communicate positively is by being able to play our part in the home, even through the stress, because the children learn through modeling more than what we say. So that, yes, we have communicated with them that we are challenged, we have a difficulty, this is where we are, we don't know how long it will last. But then I continue to be able to take my place in the house. So that if we had, for example, a rota, like now, with my adult children, we all have a time of doing different things in the house. So there's a rota, there's somebody's cooking on this day, or washing on this day, or organizing the house on this day, or doing this and that. So when we are stressed, most probably we will not want to be able to play our part. So the other way of being able to communicate positively is, after sharing, to continue with what needs to be done as much as we can, even as we try to recover, what is lost, and be able to get going in the right place. So this modeling is very important. And what I can tell, fathers who also are desiring to see the children to stand during this time, is for them to be what they want the children to be. When we focus on that and we actually live it out, then they're able to get confidence and not give up hope, but they can see the father leading the way through that stress and actually living it out for the moment. Yeah, that's what I can share for now. As I would
okay. Yes. Okay. Helena, how do you remain stable at the same time you remain an assurance, but also a source of assurance, but also dealing with your own stress?
Yes, like I was saying, the self-care. Hello?
Hello, William?
I think that is where the self-care comes in, that is able to re-energize you. But the other thing is,
hello, thank you, Jennifer.
Hello?
For
okay, sorry.
I know parenting during this time is not easy. And as parents, we cannot abandon our responsibility. We should do everything in our power to assist our children to overcome this situation, even ourselves. So the very important thing is that we need to be self-aware. We need to be aware of ourselves. As everybody else have said it, self-awareness, it starts with me, with you as a parent, before you can assist or you can help the next child. So if you are not aware of what is going on around you, if you are not aware of what is that is making you to stress, or how to stay positive or anything, so if you're not aware of what is going around you, so believe me, it will be very difficult for you to help the other person. So for us to remain positive and to be able to assist our children during this time, we really need to listen to our children's concern. So during this time is the time that children need adult love more than ever before. They need our care, they need our protection. They need us so that we are there for them every time. As I said before, that most of the time children stay with teachers at home, and they've developed more confidence being with the teacher rather than the parent. So I can remember one of my friends was trying to teach her children about mathematics, and then the child said, "Yeah, can I do this with the normal teacher?" So meaning the parent was not seen as a normal teacher. So for them now to understand that we are also teachers during this time, so we need to to resemble, or we need to model like the teachers at school. As they do, children, they learn through modeling. So they learn through imitating. So what you do is what they will do. So like what the teachers do at school, if the teacher said this is correct, so they'll come home and then they'll tell you, my teacher said this is how we do it. My teacher said this is how we talk. This is how we pronounce this word. So we need to be able to understand ourselves before we are able to understand other to help the children. So we also need to be able to have more time with them. So during this time, we should not only focus on our online activities, but we should set time aside to be with our children, to talk to them, to listen to to their concerns and their issues and their problems, so that we develop that connection between them and us. So protection, love, care is very important, so that they get to know us and we also get to know them better, for us to be able to solve or understand them and be able to provide for their needs. I think that's what I can say.
Thank you so much. As we wrap up, I want, there's a question about dealing with teenagers and who lock up in their rooms. You know, I know parenting for different age groups is a challenge. As we wrap up, I want, if you can be able to touch up on that question, Carol, you can be able to touch up on how do you deal with teenagers who are hormonal and they feel you're boring and you spoiled my life. Coronavirus has come and spoiled my life too. My life is over. How do you deal with that? And then as you do that, you give out your final and your takeaway point. You're muted, Carol.
Are we good now? You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. A very common question. What do you do with adolescents who want to hold themselves up in the room all day? One, I think one of the things the positive discipline. When we're talking about positive discipline, Mercy, yes, Mercy said that we need to understand the reasons why children misbehave. And we also need to understand if it's misbehavior, because, you know, some things we interpret it as misbehavior, and it really is very age appropriate behavior. And just knowing the developmental stage of a child and connecting it to the behavior they're exhibiting is very important. So teenagers locking themselves, wanting to stay in their rooms all day is not misbehavior. And that is one thing we need to understand, that they really need a lot of time to themselves, and they will want to go and spend time by themselves. Understanding the behavior is age appropriate then takes away a lot of pressure to try and fix it. Okay, now does it mean that we let them spend their entire time by themselves in their rooms? No, but just understanding that those are the tendency, that even as they're in there, they just really also want to have their own me time. Of course, most of the time when they're there, they are, you know, hanging out with their friends on the screens and all that. And we probably need to have a separate session to just work through that, just helping them have limits and also giving those limits with empathy. So once we understand that, then we don't come at them, we come alongside them and just be able to ask, to require of them to spend time with the rest of the family when the family values. I mean, we definitely have our own family values. We have our own times that we need to spend time together. Those ones are non-negotiable. So we make sure that those are non-negotiable. We have non-negotiable moments where we spend time together as a family. And so then we allow them that sense of power and self-direction to have their own time in their room, because our children connect to us, respond to us better when they feel that we understand them, when they feel that we are trying to put ourselves in their shoes. And one of the ways is just to allow them that space within the family values that we have put in place. We have, of course, to be sure that whatever it is they're doing in the room is safe, and they're not getting into activities that might be unacceptable. And so those are discussions you can have, not at that point when they want to stay in the room, because most of the time we want to drive our points home when something has happened. The best time to teach any lesson, and I know all of you here have talked about positive discipline. It's so exciting to be in a room where everyone is talking about positive discipline, because most of the time people are like, no, positive discipline is wishy-washy, there are no rules and all that. So it's really nice to be in a room like that. So anyway, we have said that the best time to teach a lesson is when you're calm and your child is calm. So if the issue of being in the room is a problem, let's find an appropriate time to talk about it. And it doesn't matter what age. When you're calm and you're being reasonable, children actually sit and listen to you. So with them, you just reach out to them during those moments when you are calm and they're calm, and then communicate your rules and communicate your expectations, then invite their input as well. Also, not forgetting that you're still the person in authority, and at the end of the day, you will want to do what is best for the child. But by the time you go to that decision, you have sat down, you have talked to them, you have invited their input, you have empathized. You see, like one of the things you do when you're dealing with teenagers and screen time is just feeling them and telling them, I know it's really hard to stay away from the screen. I know how tempting it is to want to keep going back to see how many likes you have gotten after you've posted a picture. That is a better way of communicating that you're spending all the time on the phone. What is wrong with you? You know, that is now coming at them. But if you come alongside them and tell them, I know just how exciting it is to get 50 likes every 2 minutes. I mean, coming with that discussion that you're coming alongside them, you are feeling them, you have empathy for them, as opposed to just saying you're spending all the time attacking them, because most of the time that's what we do. We attack them, forgetting that we were also teenagers and we may not have spent time in our rooms, but there were things that we did that were really baffling to our parents. So really having a sense of empathy with our teenagers will cause them to know that we are actually feeling them, we are empathizing with them, and they will listen to us more when they know that we are actually supporting them more than being against them.
Thank you, Carol. William, your concluding words, and to parents who are watching you, especially dads and fathers who are there and they're thinking, oh, this man, he's not showing muscles, he's letting us down. How can he can talk about parenting in such on YouTube? You know, he's letting the manhood down. What do you tell men like that as they work?
Yes, you know, the main challenge with men is trying to be macho and strong and not really be honest about what is going on. And I would like to just share with them that, yes, we have a responsibility to take care of our families. And like I said earlier, this is something that begins very much earlier, even before the children are born. And so I would encourage the fathers and the men who are in others' lives who are younger to just be positive about it, and to realize that they play a big role in the lives of these children. And the impact that they have in these children will translate into the society in a very positive way. You know, as a minister, I'm always encouraging the parents and talking to them and looking at the Bible with them. And, you know, the Bible tells us in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, that fathers do not exasperate your children, but bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord, seeing very clearly that God has a place that he has put for the fathers. And we can come in clearly without being afraid, without feeling like it is out of place. But instead of, you know, just allowing the stress that we go through because of the responsibility that we have to go to the children Rather, let us gain strength from one another. Let us connect with one another as fathers. Let us talk together and begin to share what we're going through. It is not just for women to be able to connect and to talk and share the experiences, but even the men, we can talk and discuss the issues that are difficult for us and be able to look at solutions that can help us to get to the children. But above all this, as we go through this COVID-19 situation, I would like to encourage the fathers to be a model in the house. I know because of our cultural setting, we want to sit down, maybe try and just to get all the news and all that. But looking at all this news will just increase your stress. And if it is increasing your stress, you do not need it. You know, get the information you need to get, but let us get back with our families and connect with them, connect with your son, connect with your daughter. Let us talk. It might be difficult because we are not used to it, but we can be able to build it step by step. None of us is perfect, and we might be waiting, for the time when we'll have learned everything to become perfect parents. None of us is, but we can be good enough for our children at this time. Let us be there for them. Let us be positive. Let us focus on the good things and begin to build on them as well. And take care of yourself as the man and be able to lead your family well. And those are my parting words for this. And I hope that we can all be able to hold hands together with our wives, with the women in our lives, and raise up our children in the best possible way. Thank you very much.
Mercy, as a mother of adult children, and me, my first child has just turned double digit. I'm still there. So, what would you tell a parent who is, I'm just starting, oh my goodness, when 18, when is 18 coming, so they can leave my house, they can go back to freedom, so that's parting shot.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. For any parent who is longing for their children to turn 18 so that they can be free of them and so that the kids can get away from home, you will miss out so much fun of having adults in the family alongside you and your spouse if you have one. It's exciting when you can now, when you no longer take the whip, for those who take the whip, when you can no longer shout at people, and when all you have left in terms of discipline is the reasoning. You sit down and you talk to them as adults, knowing that they have at 18 you get your identity card. Whether you're in school or not, you're literally an adult in the eyes of the law, and even you have matured even in thinking. It's so exciting for them to engage you in an intellectual conversation. And when you realize that because you're in my house doesn't work anymore, for as long as you're in my house, that doesn't work anymore either. Because I said so, that doesn't work anymore either. So you have to really sit down and reason, and you become a very wise parent. And especially when you can sit down with them and actually plan for a future with an adult. I think every parent should just be excited to get to that stage. I am not saying that it's all smooth and rosy, because sometimes you feel like, oh, I wish I could spank you because of not making your bed, because of not washing the dishes, because of not cooking on time. And all those things are there. But again, think about it. Exciting when you don't have to wash the dishes all the time, when you don't have to mow to mow the yard anymore. There's someone to help you do that. I think it's exciting. But remember, you have to grow as your kids grow. You cannot treat them the same. You cannot discipline them the same. You cannot talk to them the same way. So we mature as parents, as our kids mature, and it is exciting. So please do not miss any moment to be there with your children, because by the age of 25, all of them will want to go out and live on their own. And that's when now you start asking them, when are you coming to visit? If you don't want to be calling them to ask them to visit, please enjoy every moment of young adulthood with all its challenges. Be ready to listen. about girlfriends they want to dump, about boyfriends they want to dump, about who was, who called them, who sent an SMS. It's really exciting. But please have your thick skin, because some of the things you hear, you will want to shout, but you cannot shout. Some of the things that they are going through, some of the things that their fellow youth are going through, issues of drug, talk openly, issues of friends, talk openly, issues of sexuality, please talk openly, because this is the opportunity for you to mold a young adult into the kind of a person they will end up being, either in the family life or even those who choose to remain single. You really make a very good contribution. So childhood is gone, adulthood is here. We are all adults in this house. Let's reason together. And I'm telling you, it works. So it's exciting. Don't miss the opportunity, parents. Let them not go out at 18. Give them at least until 25, and you really enjoy that period.
Thank you, Mercy. Helena, so how can I cry and then come back being strong? Because we are crying, we are crying. This is something we've not gone through yet. Before, it's someone was saying it happens once in 100 years. So it didn't happen when I was telling someone the other day that in every generation they have stories to tell their grandchildren. Our generation didn't have any stories to tell our grandchildren. Now we have a whole coronavirus thing to tell our grandchildren. So and these are it's not an easy thing. It may look fun later, something funny, but right now it's not funny. So how can I cry? Is it okay? Can you, as you wind up, is it okay to cry and then smile at the same time? Are we allowed to cry as parents?
Thank you, Jennifer. Of course, everyone can cry, but then through crying, we should develop a resilient mode. So we cannot be crying throughout the year. So we should cry, and then through that process, we should learn how to emerge out victorious. And we can only do this when we have love for ourselves, love for our family, love for everyone around us. We should be caring for others, for ourselves. We should protect others and ourselves, and we should be willing to support and to be supported. So crying is another way of relieving stress or relieving pain, but we should not let it bring us down. So we should use that one as a radar for us to come out strong and have a resilient mode. And when we have gone through that process, so we should now be able to celebrate. So how do we celebrate when now we are smiling? So we should celebrate with ourselves, with our friends and family, with everybody around us, our colleagues, everybody that give us support when we were crying. So we should bring them out, share the experience. So we said we learn better through experience. So when we have gone through issues, then we know how to handle them better. So when we are celebrating, we should not leave the experience that made us to celebrate. So we should even turn that celebration into songs of praise, into games, into storytelling, so that we document our experience, and we will be able to share with the generation to come. So we should not just do it once and it's gone. So we need to start documenting our experiences, because through experience, we emerge out victorious and we emerge out strong, and we'll be able to face the future. Thank you.
Finally, Sheila, so caring for children who are not our own, how can we ensure that as we finish up, that protective environment, with the spiking on cases of child abuse, how can we continue providing that protective environment for the children as we finalize, because I think we are out of time and it's raining, so the internet might go off. So yeah, so how do you provide that protective environment?
Yeah, I'll be quite quick then. I think I think I'll continue to come back to responsive caregiving and understanding where a child is developmentally and what they need, and ensuring that we're really patient and understanding. Going back to what Mercy said, every behavior is because of a root cause. So be patient and kind and look into that root cause, and be patient and kind with yourself, and know that we're gonna mess up sometimes, and that's okay. And tomorrow's a new day, and let's keep creating an environment that really allows children to be children.
Thank you everyone for joining us. I think we can all switch on our videos now. William, thank you so much for joining and getting into this conversation. I really do appreciate you joining us. And thank you, Cara. Cara had to leave. She has another meeting in 5 minutes. So thank you so much. And we will continue engaging and coming up with conversations like this. A lot of people are on YouTube and on Facebook. They're really engaging this conversation. They say thank you. They have learned so much on things that they didn't know that exist. Thank you, William. You become the main. People really love what you've done. Thank you all, and God bless you. Bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everyone, thank you so much. It was a wonderful time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, Jennifer. Are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here. Let me end the live stream.